welcome to this week's episode of Nick's Rock and Wrestling Podcast. This week I've got an incredible guest, Norman Skinner, lead vocalist from American power metal band Niviane, based right out of here of Sacramento, California. Norman's a real cool dude. We talked a lot about how he got into the music business, some of his projects before Niviane, what's going on with Niviane. Unbelievable good conversation we had, just music in general. I got to know Norman real well when I played in Motorized. We did several shows with them, really good, heavy stuff. We talk all about where you can check out Niviane's music and other things, but real cool dude. That'll be coming up shortly. But as I promised last week, was going to be a review of the Fozzy concert that I went to last night. I had a VIP meet and greet with Fozzy. If you're not familiar with Fozzy, Fozzy is WWE superstar Chris Jericho's rock and roll band. And I have to say this, I'll start first with the VIP meet and greet, then I'll give you a little bit of the show and such, but I will say this, top notch all the way around from the Fozzy camp and Chris Jericho, unbelievable. I had a phenomenal time. I would definitely highly recommend, if Fozzy's coming anywhere near you, to go, but not only to go, but to fork up, the $150, which is really actually reasonable for a VIP meet and greet. It's not that expensive. I would do it. Again, it's really worth it. You get probably what I think probably the best VIP meet and greet that I've ever been to. I've been to a lot of them. Hands down, probably the best one. A lot of the VIP meet and greets you go to, it's kind of get you in, get you out, cool, you got to meet us. This one was really personalized, and it was like, holy crap, this is cool. So it was at Slim's in San Francisco, and basically you walk in, and Jericho and his band, Fozzy, are up on stage, and you get to watch them do sound check. And it's not just your normal sound check of, hey, check it out, check, make sure the guitars work, anything like that. They come, they play a couple of their big songs like Judas and Drinking with Jesus, and then they do some cover tunes, which is cool. You get to see some songs that aren't going to be in the set that night. They did Eat the Rich, which is a Crocus song, which was on their first record. It was phenomenal. Really cool was they kind of took requests. They go, what do you, Jericho asked the guitar player, Rich Ward, what do you want to do? He said something from the first record. I yelled out, dude, eat the rich. And he's like, who said that? And it's cool because they're kind of talking with you while they're on stage, and they slammed it. And, I was like, hey, man, Crocus is awesome. I love that song. I love your guys' version. And it's cool because I'm a lot younger. And they're like, how the hell you know Crocus, man? You weren't alive then. We saw them in the 80s and we were teenagers. So it was cool, and, they were real receptive as you're taking videos. There was one guy FaceTiming, and he turned it around, and Jericho was waving to the camera, and he was pointing, and he was having a good time. He was kind of putting his microphone near his dick and everything. It was really cool, just experience. They did that, then they kind of took a last request, hey, Judas Priest or Kiss, and I yelled, oh, do Priest, and then anybody for Kiss, and it was silent, and it made them laugh. They're like, oh, damn, Kiss doesn't get a response here in the Bay Area, I guess. So they did Breaking the Law, and it was cool to see them do that because I had never seen them do that. And then it was just cool, like, man, you got this personalized sound check, you got to be right up there, they're interacting with just you. I mean, I would say there was only maybe 10 people at the most at this VIP meet and greet. So it was really, really cool, really, really intimate. And then after that, they had a table. You went and they signed autographs, they shook your hand, and it was not like a lot of autograph sessions or meet and greets that I've been to before where they kind of just shook your hand and was like, hey, cool, here's your autograph, get the fuck out of here. No, it was more, hey, man, how's it going? Where are you from? Oh, I was talking to them, I saw you guys at Aftershock last year in Sacramento. I came down from Sacramento. They're like, oh, yeah, dude, that was a blast. And, start talking and, walked up to Rich Ward, and he's like, hey, dude, thanks for yelling out Eat the Rich, man, that was cool. And then, start talking. I was like, dude, I wanted to play Breaking the Law with you guys. That's one of the first songs I learned to play on the guitar. And Rich Ward was like, oh, yeah, dude, we all learned that. So it was a real cool experience. And then Jericho was super nice. I was talking to him about, Kiss Disco versus Kiss 80s without makeup. We kind of got in a little debate about that. real cool dude. Kind of gave him, hey man, you were the inspiration kind of behind this podcast. He says thanks, man, and really personable dude. The whole band was super cool. And then you got a picture with the band, which was cool, and they, and merchandise was all there for you to go and grab as soon as you wanted. So it was a really, I would say, top-notch VIP meet and greet without question. I would go and pay that. Hell, I'd probably pay even I'd pay upwards of $350 for it because it was such an intimate experience. And Fozzy has really grown in the last year with their new album Judas coming out. They've become a much bigger band than they have been in previous years. So I think that their VIP meet and greets are going to only get better as they get bigger. And then the show started. What was really cool about the show was there were 3 opening bands. Band called Dark Scar Choir. Actually had the bass player from Disturbed in it, John Moyer. And they were really cool. They did like a Dio cover. They were real kind of darkish, almost a kind of dark metal meets, new wave, power metal thing. And it was really cool to see that. The guitar player was phenomenal. The singer had some pipes. Really good band. Up next after that was Santa Cruz. It's a band from Finland. If you're not familiar with them, definitely go check them out because they got some good shit. I had never seen them live, but I'm very familiar with their music, and they were killer, man, live. They really got like a Skid Row meets Guns N' Roses, 80s thing kind of going on, and they really kill it. The guitar tandem that they had was phenomenal to see live. They really kicked some ass. Then Through Fire, kind of a newer band. I've heard some of their music. One of their songs was a theme for a WWE pay-per-view. They were good. Really not kind of my cup of tea, but still, somewhat enjoyed them. And then Fozzy came on, obviously, to headline and played for like, an hour 15, hour 30. And really, if you have not seen these, Fozzy, it's unbelievable. Bruce Dickinson, to me, from Iron Maiden, is one of the best frontman of all rock and roll. Chris Jericho, I think, could keep up with it. I think Chris Jericho is on the level of a Bruce Dickinson, a Mick Jagger, a Steven Tyler. He is constantly moving. He's working the crowd. Unbelievable show. I mean, they came out, and it's just they didn't have pyro because it's a small club, but they had kind of these like little, steam things that would shoot out, air, and it was just boom. It was on fire from the minute the set started. Rich Ward, the guitar player, the second song in, he came out to the crowd and was jumping around. I got like a little selfie and video of rocking out with him. And then he gets up on like the barricade and does his guitar solo. They just constantly moving. I've heard Jericho say in interviews that, when you go and see Fozzy, they want it to feel like it's 1979 Van Halen. Well, it definitely feels like that. It felt like almost... the music is newer, but it felt like it was the 1980s. You're in the small, dingy club. You're getting your drink on and seeing a badass rock and roll show. And then it just got better. Jericho put on his light-up jacket before one of the songs. He had this little CO2 cannon to shoot out at the crowd. They were shooting pics. They were jumping around. I mean, it is a phenomenal show. At this point, I'd only seen Fozzy before this one time at Aftershock last year festival, and it was... a 20, 25-minute set. I got to see the full set last night, and it was just fucking phenomenal, man. If you get a chance to go see Fozzy and Chris Jericho, definitely would go see them. Pay the money to go to the VIP meet and greet experience. Top notch. Everybody in the Fozzy camp is phenomenal. Jericho is the man. Hopefully one day, we'll share this bad boy out on Twitter. We can get Jericho, we can get Rich Ward, we can get any of the guys from Fozzy to be on the podcast. I'd love to interview them and pick their brain and just about anything because they are badass, kick-ass, straight-up rock and roll band that I would definitely go see if they come to a town near you. But a couple things here before Norman comes on the show. We have, remember, social media. The Twitter handle is Nick's R&W Podcast. The Gmail, rockandwrestlingpodcast@gmail.com. Find me on Facebook. The YouTube channel is now up. All the episodes are up there on the YouTube, including this one will be posted a little bit later today. Also, I would like to announce that I have had one t-shirt made. I'm going to now have them for sale, and they're going to be through ProWrestlingTees.com. A lot of people host their T-shirts there. You're going to be able to find my official store for the Rock and Wrestling Podcast on ProWrestlingTees.com. Should be up there here in the next couple of weeks. I'll keep reminding you. It's going to be one basic design of the logo, the brand new logo, which shout out to Dave Silver once again for making that from Something to Wrestle With and What Happened When with respective podcasts. But make sure help a brother out. Go there, get the shirt. Everybody that buys a shirt, I'm going to try to do something special, give you a shout out right here on the podcast, give you a tweet out, maybe hell even start giving personalized phone calls if I get enough volume of T-shirts. But definitely you'll get a shout out right here. Anything you want me to say, you can put it in there and I'll say it right here on the podcast. So definitely do that. It should be up here in the next couple of weeks, but my T-shirts will be for sale on ProWrestlingTees.com. It'll say Rock and Wrestling Podcast with the exact design you should be seeing on your phone as you're listening on iTunes or SoundCloud or YouTube, wherever you're listening. And if you go over there, buy my shirt, buy other people's shirts, but definitely I will personalize the experience for you, give you a shout out on the podcast. Hell, if people get enough volume and somebody really wants it, you can come on the podcast. But help a brother out and go get a T-shirt from ProWrestlingTees.com. They'll be up there in a couple of weeks. But coming up next is Norman from American power metal band Niviane. Shortly coming up, Norman. All right, I'm here with my guest, Norman from Niviane, and as I look at your wall here, 19,000 other bands are you in at the moment?
At one point in time.
So I want to start off in that you are in a lot of bands at one point in time. Are you still in those bands? How do you manage being in so many bands from, obviously your main is Niviane.
Right.
And then you've got Skinner, and how do you manage all of those?
To manage it, it's pretty easy. I think if you want something bad enough, you make the time for it, right? Mm-hmm. In general, I think in life, right? So, I'm one of those guys that can't say no. So I just take on more and more and more until I have to tap out. A little wrestling pun. Right?
There we go, perfect.
Right? Until I have to tap out and say, okay, I can't do so much, and then I just look around and say, okay, this is my most successful things that are working. These are not so much. Cut it loose. So around 2012, I think, around that time, I had 6 projects going, and I was like, this is way too much, so I got rid of 3 right then and there. And you know what? But I mean, I'm a guy that puts my fingers in a little bit of everything because you never know what's going to pan out. But right now I'm in Niviane, which is my main, even more so than my solo band Skinner. The Niviane, that takes my time, my priorities. Skinner is my solo band, and then I have a studio project called Hellscream, and then there's a new project in the works called Elementis that I have not yet unleashed, which is also just a recording studio project.
So I know on levels like Miles Kennedy, he was in Slash's band, he's in Alter Bridge. Do you kind of try to do that when you're in different bands, is try to make them different from one another, that way you're not I'm playing the same stuff over and over, just different guys?
Exactly. The only reason I'm in multiple bands is because I wanted. Okay, we were talking before we started this, right, about different music that we've listened to over the years, right? I started off in the hair metal, classic rock kind of thing. Then I got into thrash metal, death metal, progressive metal. Then I found power metal, which is kind of heavy power metal is my thing now, right? So you got Niviane. Niviane's my heavy power metal band. My solo band Skinner, which is my thing, that's more modern. That's where I do a lot of growly vocals, and it's got more of the modern sound, kind of that Euro sound and stuff. So that it's completely different. Hellscream's just straight up old school speed metal, Judas Priest on steroids type stuff. A lot of high screaming Halford vocals. And then my Elementis project is the first album's just going to be this epic symphonic concept CD. A lot of storyline, a lot of guest vocals, different parts. It's more like a sort of an opera or a play put the music.
Like concept
Exactly.
record.
Yeah. So those are the things I'm doing right now, and each one is completely different, just like you said.
So how does it work vocally? Because the first time I saw you, were playing with Dire Apparel, and I was
Yeah.
I was really impressed in your range, and your control. How does it going from one band to another, especially that different vocal styling from like a thrash metal to a power metal? How does that really like? Do you do one thing better than the other, or you're pretty diverse overall?
You know, that's something I don't really think about if I'm better at one or the other. But I can tell you how I started that style for myself back in high school. And I don't know how old you are, but I think you're younger than me.
I'm probably plenty younger than
Okay.
you.
Well, back in the day,
Back in my old time,
right? Well, us old people had things called cassette tapes, right?
Yeah.
So when I got into high school, a little backstory. Before I got into high school, I just really knew hair metal. It was on MTV. That's what I knew. I didn't have any older brothers or anything. I didn't, have older friends that were showing me new music. And this was even through part of junior high. I was listening to hair metal. Then I got into high school, and let me tell you, everyone saw me as like the music virgin. They all wanted a piece of me, right? So back in the day, we'd take our cassette tape, or like you'd take like a Madonna tape, or a Sheila E. or something. You'd break those tabs off. You were even motioning it. You break the tab off, put the tape on it, right? And you can record whatever you want. So my friends, they were like, dude, you've never heard of this band, this band, this band. And they'd bring me these mixtapes, and it would be like Faith No More, then Obituary,
Awesome.
then like, Fate's Warning and Metallica. It was very different. And I get used to listening to these and singing along. So from song to song, I'd start changing my style of singing. Now, mind you, I sucked bad back then. I didn't know what I was doing. This is before I fell into music by accident, which we can talk about later if you want. But and then I've always been that way. I still, if you look at my playlist, it's all like literally today I was listening to one song's Bon Jovi, and then the next one is Killswitch Engage. So
that's very different.
Yeah. So, but I'm singing, Hard as the Night, and then I'm singing, By Curse.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And then just getting back to your original question, I don't know if I do one better than the other. A lot of people like my low, just kind of gruff singing voice, more of my baritone voice. I think that's like my money. Everything else, I just try. The high stuff, it's hit and miss. It depends on how I'm feeling that day.
I think that's it for any singer, really, because I've gone and seen I've seen Axl do live, and it's like, oh, he was great, and then it's like, he wasn't so good today. Like, I think it's just that. So I know Niviane being your main project. So if you read the Bible, it says new breed of American power metal. What differs American power metal from European power metal?
Okay, I've gotten a lot of shit for this one. I'm allowed to swear, right?
Oh, you can swear as much as you want.
Shit. I've gotten a lot of shit for that. So when we put the band together, I was like, well, we need something. We need some sort of catchy tag phrase or something. And I came up with that. I was like, that sounds cool. I didn't put a lot of thought into it. And of course, the European press, they're like, new breed of American. They just sound like European power metal to us. And they kind of, some people took some offense to it. But then the American press, they were like, oh yeah, they have more of the European sound mixed with American classic metal. So I think Niviane, in general, the guys in the band, they're influenced by like Yngwie and Priest and a lot of that new wave of British heavy metal, right? Which, even though it's not based out of the United States,
it has a very United States sound.
It's the kind of a sound that's known, right? We like the heaviness of American power metal bands like Iced Earth and stuff. So that's where we're rooted. But then we have all this European sound, right? So I was just like, oh, well, we're a new breed of American power metal. And I just was looking at it that way. But yeah, I took that tagline off of our website, but a lot of the promo material is still out there, and it just is what it is.
Yeah, because I was researching, I was like, American power metal. I'm like, I know European power metal is one thing. I was like, what are we singing about in American power metal?
I think we're just a heavy European power metal band along the lines of Primal Fear, Mystic Prophecy, Brainstorm. Those kind of bands, we're right in the same vein, nothing different. My apologies to anyone that took offense overseas.
Yeah, because we were talking off air here, like I said, power metal is like for me, it's like Dio and like Primal Fear. I can get into those, but so it's like, how do you? Because I know singers have to convey a certain thing. How do you convey? Because like some of your stuff is very, would you say, mythological lyrically? So how do you convey that? Because I know I've heard like other singers say like there has to be the realism to convey it.
Right. So here's my thought process on power metal, and it sounds to me like you may have a similar mindset than I do on this. Okay. There's heavy power metal where they could be singing about riding a unicorn with chainmail on and a rainbow sword, right?
Yeah.
But if it's sang with like some attack and just power, and it just sounds heavy as fuck, you're like, yeah, unicorns,
Yeah, and that was like when I discovered Primal Fear. I'm like, they sound like priests, but they're singing about. I'm like, I don't know what they're singing about, but it sounds good, so I like it.
Another thing is a lot of the power metal bands that I'm not into. I wouldn't say I'm totally not into them. If I heard an album with like one song, two songs, but there's your Rhapsodies and your Blind Guardians and even some Hammerfall and stuff. I like a handful of songs by these bands, but it's a little cheesy. It's a little over the top, right?
Mm-hmm.
A little soft for me. So when I write the lyrics in the band, I make sure I'm very apparent. I'm reading what I'm writing, and I'm like, I don't want to be cheesy. I want this to be like, if we're gonna sing about epic stuff, it's gonna be about battles and gladiators and dark sorcerers and stuff. I don't want to hear about elves and dancing trolls and toadstool house. I don't want
none of that. None of that.
Yeah. So I just sing it heavy, and I epic, and that's the kind of power metal I like. I want to be. It's like watching a really good like Braveheart or something.
Braveheart. Okay. Yeah. Because that was always the thing that I like. You said the one, but Blind Guardian, they drive me nuts.
I don't want a freaking orchestra in the background. And,
I was like, I think they played Ace of Spades, and I got talked into going. I was like, all right, I'll go check it out. I was like, this is just too corny. I mean, this is almost like Iron Maiden's trying to be hair metal in a sense. I'm like, this is a little too. I was like, I'm not buying this. This is too much.
Yeah, and then you got Maiden, right? Maiden, they sing about some really
they're like
fantasy-based stuff, but
it's Iron Maiden.
I'm like, Maiden. They do it right. They're like, hey, we're a new wave British heavy metal sounding band, one of your founders, right? But we like mythological tales.
Yeah,
we're gonna tell you a story through this kind of music.
Yeah, I've never been like, oh no, I don't like. I'm like, it's Iron Maiden. Who doesn't like Iron Maiden if you're a metal fan? Like, come on. So with Niviane, I know it's kind of I don't know if I wouldn't say, but a local musician super group you could of sorts you could say as it formed.
So I'm gonna go way back to this would be late '90s, mid late '90s, right after high school for me. I remember watching it was an interview with Ozzy Osbourne. Right, he was mumbling incoherently half the time, but
that's what he does.
Right. And I remember him. He was doing this interview, and he said one thing that really stuck with me. And this is when I was just starting to get into bands. He's like, well, I'm not the bloody best vocalist in the world, right? And I'm sitting there thinking, no shit, right? He goes, but I surround myself with the best musicians I can find. So I took that to heart. So every band I've been in, most of the bands I've been in, there's a couple I'll look on my wall. I'm not going to call out names, but most of the bands I've been in, I've been lucky enough to have found really awesome musicians. And Niviane, yeah, definitely some of the best players I've ever played with. These guys are top-notch talent, and I want to be forced to do better. I want to be feeling like, damn, I'm the weak link. I got to keep up my game. And it's a good good feeling when you go into the studio and you're working on a song. You can just step back and go, hell yeah, it's my band. These guys are rocking.
Yeah, well, the couple shows we played together, I was like, those guys are good. yeah. I don't know how to do it, but they're good.
But yeah, it's just I've always just been like that. I mean, I do my own homework and I push myself, but I can't play any instrument. I'm at the mercy of guys that know how to write songs. I just write lyrics and melodies and sing it. So I need to find good guys to do that.
So when you guys got together, how is the songwriting process? Because I know for certain bands it's different. Is it you guys? It's just
every band has been different that I've been in. For Niviane, we're lucky enough that we have 3 songwriters. So the ideas are constantly. My inbox is like boom, new song I wrote, boom, And literally between the bands I'm working on, I think my queue is like 30 songs right
Oh
now
wow.
that I'm currently working on at one time. And what I do is I just put them in a rotation. I select a few that sound catchy, and I just keep going. And the ones that rise to the top are the ones that get used. So in Niviane, we have Rick Stallkamp, who's the bassist. He writes, about a third of the songs. Mark Miner writes about a third of the songs, and Gary Tarpley writes about a third of the songs. So they're, one person's stuff doesn't always get chosen
Yeah.
to be used right away, but everyone's constantly putting ideas in. They deliver me. Usually they'll deliver me. They'll send. Lately they've gotten smart. I always tell them, "Hey, give me some drums," because the scratch guitar track,
Yeah, you
I can
can't.
write to it, but then once the drummer does something, it changes it. So they'll send something to our drummer Noe. He'll throw some drums on it. Then they kick it to me, and it might just be like, say, Gary, for instance. He'll write a song. He'll send it to Noe. Noe will put some drums on it, and then they'll send it to me. I'll work on it for a while, and then when I'm done, I record some demo vocals on it. Then we send it out to the rest of them. The other two guys have probably never even heard it till that point,
To that point.
and then they're like, "Oh yeah, that's cool." And we just kind of work that way. The guys send me stuff. They get drums on it. As soon as I'm done with it, I'm kind of like the guy at the pass. I'm like Gordon Ramsay out there, right? I'm like, okay, this one's ready to go. Looks like this is the next one the band's learning.
So it does kind of makes it go faster in terms of writing the writing process.
We're getting ready to. We've only been together what, a couple of years, a little over 2 years, 2.5 years. We wrote the first album, recorded it, put it out this last November. When we get back from tour at the end of April, we start recording the new album that's written.
Wow.
We're already working on songs for album number 3.
Jeez. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on because you guys got a tour coming up. So
Yes.
we were talking a little bit off air about that. So some of the bands you're touring with, how did this come about? Everything like.
It's a typical scenario. So I'm a business guy for music, so I get hit up a lot by people that want information or how do I go about doing this. I ran my own record label for a couple of years, so I know a lot about this stuff. So when we were recording the album, I'm like, all right, guys, there's certain things that we need to. I want a 3-prong attack. I want a label to distribute our album. I mean, they might do a little marketing and stuff. I'm not asking for full tour support, all that, but I just want a label so our record has a home and somebody to do that portion of it. We need promo, somebody that's out there doing press releases, hitting up radio, interviews, stuff like that. And then we need management. And management helps you. Usually they're the ones that are getting the tour offers and whatnot. So that was the case. We got all 3 locked down. We're with Distilled Entertainment, who's our management. They get tour offers all the time. What happened to say some band is touring and they say, we're thinking about doing US Canada. It's going to be about 3 weeks. It's going to be this size club or theater shows, whatever. Do you have any bands that are interested in touring with us? Sends it to us, and we go, we're not touring with that death metal band, or that's some Euro tech thing, right? When we saw Sirenia, they're a female symphonic, metal band from Europe. Like, yeah, that could work. It's along our line. So we said, yeah, we're interested. And we just went back and forth, back and forth. It's a typical buy-on when you're starting out. You usually buy on to a tour for X amount per show. You hope you make that money back in your merchandise sales, etc. You're going to invest to get more crowd and stuff. You're going to have to hit the road. You're going to have to spend some money, but you have to be smart about it. So this was just happened to be one of the cases where it worked out. We're like, we can do this leg of the tour. It's about 7 shows,
Perfect.
and so we're prepping this month. We leave at the end of the month. We leave on Easter, April 1st. So.
Perfect. So one of the things being obviously a power metal band, when you guys were starting out and you're starting to play shows, was it difficult trying to get lineups, or were you just like, hey, well, let's take a show wherever we can? But because there's not that many, when you think about it, power metal bands
Right.
in America are few and far between. Was it difficult at first? Like, we just got to kind of take gigs and get our name out there, or was it just like...
No. And I'll tell you why. I'm going to have to kind of expand on this one a little bit. I've been in bands where it has been that way. It's like, okay, guys, we're playing wherever we can, as much as we can, because we just want people to know about us. Right. I think any band that starts off out of the gate, that should be your thing.
That was what we did in Motorized. We were just like, let's just play. Like,
Right.
when we got to Ace of Spades, like, we played on a tribute night between a Rage Against the Machine and a Metallica band. They thought we were a Motorhead tribute band. We're like, sorry, but like, we just need to play somewhere.
But that's the way to do it. I mean, because you're starting off with no fan base except for your friends that know about that you're in a new band. I mean, that is it. So with fortunately with Niviane, some people were saying, "Oh, super group and stuff."
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, because I knew like Mark had played in bands that I'd gone and seen. I know Gary was in a band we played with. I can't even remember.
Cryptic Runes.
Yeah, Cryptic Runes.
Yep.
Like we played with him, and I had kind of seen your guys' drummer, and then I was like, so you guys kind of had been in bands otherwise.
Exactly. So like me myself, I already have a name. I've put out, lots of albums on lots of different labels. I've toured, so I already had my own sort of built-in following and contacts. Mark was known; he had a lot of contacts. Daria wasn't in the band yet. Our drummer Noe wasn't in the band yet. We had previous members, and I think Rick had a couple people he knew. He was more. It was more just me and Mark. But between us and Claudius, who was our original guitar player, who used to be in Serpent and Seraph, he's now in Possessed. We were getting show offers before we were ready to play. And it was kind of the same thing with my solo band Skinner. Since I left Imagica, I was writing my first album. We had 5 songs written, and promoters hit me up. He's like, "Hey, I want you to open for Stryper for a show." I did it, but we had to rush to get like one more song, so we have to set. So I've been in a good situation where I haven't had to worry about that aspect of it in quite a long time. But for most bands, out of the gate, yes, play everything you can, and we don't even book shows. We get enough offers coming in that we just accept or reject them. I haven't had to book a show.
That's nice, especially because when you guys are starting out, just kind of getting your feet wet. Like that's really nice.
And booking sucks. It is a thankless job.
It's a nightmare. I can tell you that much. So that's kind of nice that you guys get offers in that sense. So still keeping with Niviane a little bit. I know we kind of scratched the surface. So how did really the beginnings of the band? I know you talked there were former members and such.
Right.
How did Niviane get the start?
So, oh man. So the band, okay, I'm not going to go back before me, but there was Claudius Kramer, Mark Miner, Rick Stallkamp, and then there's the original drummer, Mark Sprague. Mark and Rick were in Restrained together. Mark Sprague, the drummer, sorry, not Mark Miner. Mark Miner and Claudius were friends, and they both were shredders.
Oh, so. Every time I watch Mark, I'm like, yeah, I think we played On the Wire with you guys, and I was like, yeah, he warms up more than I do. He's yeah.
Well, Mark's also been, I think, his primary job is he's a guitar instructor.
Yeah.
For like 25 years.
Yeah, I watch it. I'm like, yeah, I just go up and play, and I know like the power chords and some scales. I'm like, he's good.
That's more than me. Well, they were together, and they were like, we want a power metal band. It's funny, anybody that's in a power metal, even if they're not in a power metal band, on the side they're like, I just want to do some epic shit. Write some power metal. It's just, it's funny. I know so many people like that. I was doing Hellscream, Skinner, Dire Apparel at the time. Those were my 3 main projects. Hellscream, it's a studio project. I had the 1 album out. I was just sort of getting ready to work on the next album. I had a whole new solo album ready to go, but my lineup I had dissolved, and the guitar players were like, "You're not using any of the music." So I was at square one to start over. And then Dire Apparel, I was notified shortly after that my services were no longer needed by the band. Jason wanted to go a different direction. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, I really don't have anything to work on at the moment. I got to start finding new members for my solo project. I'm no longer with Dire Apparel, even though I had a full album ready to go for that too. And Hellscream, I'm not supposed to get any new tracks for the new album for a while. So I put a post out on Facebook. I said, hey, I'm free. Anybody want to do something? I'm looking for a new project. Brian O'Connor, who used to be in Vicious Rumors, Deadlands, awesome guy. He hits me up and he's all, hey, Scoop, who that's what we call Claudius, he's looking for, he has a new power metal band. I think he'd be perfect for it. So I hit up Claudius, who's the only guy I knew out of the group, and he's like, oh, I'd love to work with you. I'm like, well, I'd love to work with you. He's like, well, let me send you some stuff. So I believe it was a Saturday or a Friday. It might have been a Friday. He sent me 3 songs. I wrote lyrics, demoed vocals, and sent them back to him on Monday for the 3 songs. So I guess he played it for the band. He's like, oh, you're in, dude. So I show up to rehearsal, the first rehearsal. I hand my band rent to Mark, and I meet everybody. I mean, I was in the band before I met them. And that was it. That was the beginnings of it. And then, of course, I found out a week later that they had a singer at the time that they ended up get rid of him after they heard my stuff. I was like, oh, damn. Sorry.
Sorry, guys. My bad.
Sorry, dude. I wasn't like home wrecking. I just, I didn't
just
know.
needed something.
Yeah. And that's how it began. And then after 1 year, just as a follow-up, Claudius wanted to go his own way because I think the consensus was he wanted to do a majority of the writing and not really share the writing as much. He wanted his own
little.
So, but he, was like, oh, good luck, guys. He still comes to the shows, totally supportive. And that's when we got Gary. Gary was taking some instruction from Mark. The Cryptic Ruins had opened up for us. He's like you. He saw Mark. He was like, oh, dude, can you teach me some stuff? Gary was also in Maiden, California for a while doing the Maiden stuff. And then Mark's like, I got the guy. We get along great. He's a shredder. He doesn't think he's that good, but he's really good. And we're like, yeah. So we said, yeah, whoever you want, bring him down. He's in. And then the drummer situation was just, I don't know, man. I liked the guy. He was really cool, but he just didn't have his shit together. And
that makes it tough.
Everyone in the band was like, no, give him time. And I really, sorry, Mark, if you're listening. I was the one that pulled the trigger on that. I'm like, no, he's got to go, and I'm going to do it. So everyone left, and I took care of the deed. And then I brought in my drummer for my solo band, Skinner. So
that's the
he's
lineup.
now in Niviane, so he's also in Skinner as well.
Oh, awesome. So now that we kind of touched on Niviane, I know earlier you said kind of the early 90s is when you kind of fell into bands. How did how did you fall into bands?
Yeah, this is a funny story, actually. I've told this a few times. It was a junior year. Actually, no, we're going to go back to 7th grade.
Oh, wow.
Real quick, because I just need to give somewhat of a backstory for it to make sense. 7th grade, I'm watching, Poison videos and whatever else. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Poison. Hey, we all,
Crew.
It's Poison's the guilty pleasure.
Right. And I'm seeing, I'm like, damn, look at these girls in these videos, right? Now, mind you, I'm like 13, 14. My hormones are raging. All I want to do is like sample some of the goods, right?
You don't know whether to play air guitar or...
Right. So I'm like, I need to learn how to play guitar to get girls. So I asked my parents, I'm like, can I please have a guitar? They get me, I'm thinking I'm going to get an electric guitar, full stack, right? Hell no, I get this nylon string, acoustic, classical guitar. And I think it was Mel Bays, the guy's name, teach yourself how to play books.
Yeah, the teacher, I had one of those, yeah.
Yeah, I lasted, I think I learned 3 chords, and then on my 4th chord, it was like a G or something. I couldn't get my finger, I can't do the Spock thing. I couldn't get my fat fingers to move where I wanted to. My fingers were hurting from the strings. I'm just like, screw this. Threw that thing in the closet, and there it sat until just midway through my sophomore year. I meet my buddy Craig. He's hanging out. He has a girlfriend. I have a girlfriend. We're all hanging out in my room. Make out sessions with our girls right after school.
Got the Motley Crue on.
All right. So they left and he was hanging out and he saw that I had a Metallica poster, a Def Leppard poster and stuff. And he's like, oh, dude, you into metal? I'm like, yeah. And we were talking about, he's like, yeah, it'd be cool to be in a band. I want to play guitar. And I'm like, I got a guitar. This guitar that's been sitting in my closet buried, all of a sudden I'm proud of it. I'm like, I got a guitar.
I know one chord. It's more than AC/DC.
Oh, I didn't say anything. So I give it to him. It's got 1 string left on it. I think some of the bridge it supports inside were broke, and the neck was cracked. This thing was rusted. And he's like, I can have it. I'm like, dude, you can have that, man. So I give it to him. It was near the end of the year. All summer long, he's been practicing guitar. Comes junior year, he meets up with some other guys that are playing. And they're saying, hey, we're going to be in the talent show. We're going to play 2 brand new songs that are popular right now. It's going to be awesome. So I'm hanging out while they're rehearsing and stuff all the time. I'm just like that 5th Beatle, right? It must have been no more than 3 weeks before the show, or no less than that. I get a call from the other guitarist who I didn't know that well, and he's like, hey, brother. So our singer bailed on us. And supposedly he's like, I don't know, he's having stage fright or some crap or something. This guy's singing like the school choir or something. So I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, we need you to sing. I've never sang in front of anybody. I don't know how to sing. I'm just the guy that's been hanging out. So I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't sing. And he's like, He's like, oh, come on, be you there? You know the songs. I mean, you've been hanging out. We just need somebody. Just walk around, jump on stage. It'll be cool.
Hey, David Lee Roth just does karate, so you're fine.
Just bust out the swords. So I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do it, right? Now, I'm sitting there thinking, after I hang up the phone, I'm like, dude, the only singing I do is in my underwear in my bedroom or in the shower. This is going to be bad. So I go to the rehearsal. We start working on the 2 songs. And this will tell you exactly how old I am, because this was my junior year. These 2 songs were brand new, and they were like the biggest songs. First one was Enter Sandman by Metallica, and Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana.
I could never, if I never heard those songs again, I would be happy.
Right.
Those songs are so overplayed.
So we learned them. We played the talent show. We got disqualified for people stage diving and pitting on stage. And then afterwards, they were just like banging the stage, like, we want more. And I went back to say, I never felt a high like, you've played live. Mm-hmm. I've never felt a high like that. And I was just like, dude, I want to do this. So then I immediately went and I joined like a bunch of, little club bands. And I just started honing my skills, started taking lessons and just really diving into it. But before that, it was by accident.
Yeah.
Him saying, we need you to sing at this one talent show. I would have never pursued it or done it. And it all just kind of happened.
And the rest is history from there.
Yeah.
So with being in so many projects, I want to talk a little bit about like Skinner being kind of your solo project. You say that's kind of like, or more modern, especially since you have to do so many styles. Who were the big, your vocal influences?
I guess it depends on over time, right?
Yeah.
In the very beginning, we were talking like it was Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin. I really Sebastian Bach, Skid Row, that guy.
Oh, he can. Yeah.
Belt.
He still gets still great.
A little bit of Jeff Tate back then, but those were kind of like my early influences. Then once I actually remember, I told you in high school I was getting exposed to a whole bunch of new music. This is the first time it wasn't until 1995 I got my first Maiden or Priest albums.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
See, I was the same way. Like I was into like Motley Crue and stuff, and then I kind of same way. I kind of discovered it through other guys, and I was like, dude, why have I not heard this bit? Why haven't I heard Iron Maiden? This is awesome.
Then you got to kind of backwards.
Yeah, you got to go backwards,
exactly.
And then it shoots off, and you're like, wait, this new band kind of sounds like Iron Maiden, right. And yeah.
Now, when I started singing, I'd say 2 of my main influences would have been Lane Staley from Alice in Chains at that time and Chuck Billy from Testament. So it was kind of getting in a little bit of the heavy, a little bit of the harmony thing mixed with, like I was already listening to Sebastian Bach and all that stuff. And then over the years, I'd say some of my more later influences have been Andy Frank from Brainstorm, Russell Allen from Symphony X and Adrenaline Mob. I love Howard Jones from Killswitch Engage.
See, I was like,
a lot of different people.
I had a lot of buddies that were into Killswitch, and they were into the first singer, and I was like, I don't like.
So I thought on the first couple albums with him, I was like, oh, he's got some cool stuff. I mean, My Last Serenade's probably one of my favorite Killswitch songs, and that's the old singer. Then they came out with the Times of Grace album with the old singer and some of the members, and I listened to it, and there's a lot of harmony, a lot of great. I'm like, this guy's awesome. Then when Howard left and he came back, their albums since have been phenomenal.
Yeah.
The guy's great, but in the beginning,
I was like, meh. And then like Howard came in, they did the Holy Diver thing, and I was like, all right, now this band's awesome.
I didn't even like growly vocals forever. It wasn't until I heard Soilwork. It was their Natural Born Chaos album, and he was singing and doing growly, and I heard the dynamic of the two, and I was like, I dig this a lot. So now when I sing, I'll throw in little bits of growls here and there as spice. Except in Skinner, I'll do full verses and full stuff like that. But even now, there's still a lot of like death metal and extreme metal stuff I can't listen to as a singer at all.
I got into Slipknot, and I was like, the vocals are just so like. But then when I realized he was like in Stone Sour and he could sing, and then they started doing more singing, I'm like, I need some of that because like there's some death metal bands I'm just like.
I like the dynamics in general. So. I mean, it's just when you merge the two, it just keeps you. You don't know what's going to happen next, where they're going to take it, and I like to do that in my music as well.
So Skinner's that more modern Killswitch. You would say,
especially the new album. It's the new album. Some of the sounds that I'm getting on it are kind of like Bullet for My Valentine, Killswitch Engage. It's got a lot of the heavy verses with like more melodic, clean choruses. And that's just a, I don't know. I mean, I've always wanted to do power metal. Well, I got my power metal band, so no need to do that for my solo stuff. So what's the next kind of thing I really like? I like that sound.
And then Hellscream is just that.
It's like King Diamond, Judas Priest, except just like
So you're not.
fast.
So it's just a studio project. You don't ever have any intention to do anything live or anything with it.
People ask us all the time if we'll ever do that. We've talked about maybe doing a tour here and there. So what a lot of people don't know is Hellscream is actually the band Cage. Super popular heavy metal, power metal band Cage. Except Sean Peck, who's the singer, and very well known singer, he has multiple other projects that he does. Like the guys from Manowar and things. He has big projects. So it leaves Dave a lot of free time to do other things. So this is his side project. It really is just a side project when they're not doing Cage. So, I sing instead, but it's all the members of Cage. So
There you go. Hey, works out perfect. So real quick, I want to dive into the. You said you owned a record label.
I did.
I want to. That's definitely a different dynamic, especially because I know a lot of guys these days start their own labels for whatever may reason, and definitely when you've been in bands, it's a different dynamic when you run a label versus being a business guy and running a label.
Yeah, I started it in like 2013. I think is when I initially first started it. I had my solo album, the Skinner Sleepwalkers. I was super proud of it, and I'm like, okay, let me shop this around. I shopped it to I think a little over 80 labels, and I think I got 3 hits maybe back only, and they were like, bend over and take it. These were horrible contracts. So I was talking with different people, and they're like, you have contacts and stuff. You should just launch it yourself independently. And I was like, well, I mean, that's cool, but I want like a label name behind it. I want a little more. I started talking to other people. I brought on, I think at one time we had 20 employees. Everyone worked for free. I had promotions department. I had merchandising department. I mean, I had PR people in different regions and stuff. We had a team that reviewed submissions and stuff. And we signed 6 or 7 bands between the U.S. and Europe. And we even put on one festival called Outrage one year, which was a success. And we did everything from hard rock to like good thrash metal. And it was just growing and growing and growing. And the only problem with that was ultimately 2 things happened. One, I found that it was taking too much of my time and resources away from my actual music. The only other when I looked at the bottom line, the only bands that were making money for me were my own. The other bands, granted, they were great bands, they just weren't. I don't know. I think bands need to have a business sense of their own, a lot of do-it-yourself attitude. And then I wanted to take a hiatus from it. I wanted to turn it over to what I called my executive team, like 3 or 4 people that were handling everything. And no one wanted to take the reins. They're like, well, if you're not around, I mean, with your name, I don't want to do it. So I said, you know what? I have to make the decision. I killed the label after a couple of years. Said I have to do my own music because that's more important to me. And I paid all the bands whatever was left on the ledger that was owed to them, and sent them their merchandise back from our department, and a nice thank you letter, and said, if I can ever do anything for you, let me know. But unfortunately that's what had to happen.
Yeah, so you're smart in the sense that a lot of guys get in bands are like, I just want to be in a band, and like they don't think of it as a business like it is. So one of the things I know you said, you get shipped a lot of the contracts and stuff. Ugh. We had motorized. We had one, and I could not read the language to save my life. Yeah. So had you, just being in bands over the years, been able to read the language yourself, or is it you'd still take it to somebody?
More and more, but okay. So when I was my record label was called Dead Inside Records, and we'll call him my vice president or whatever. We had different titles. Operations
Management, whatever. Yeah,
he was like my right hand man. He and I think when we were writing our own contracts, first thing we did is we reached out to a friend of mine from high school who's a lawyer. I said, hey, he's not an entertainment lawyer, but he's a family law lawyer. I said, we need a record contract, just a standard one. Sent it to us, and I'm reading that. I'm like, hell no! If I was a band, I would never sign this thing. I go, we're redlining the hell out of this. We stayed up for hours late in the night, just redlining, changing this thing up. Then we used that one. We eventually later got another lawyer for an entertainment lawyer for our label that would look over things. And we tailored the contract a little bit, but those hours and hours of research and just trying to write it
Oh,
ourselves,
yeah.
that helped me a lot more. So when I with Niviane, when we had 4 record album deals come across our desk. Two. Oh, actually, we only had 2. After we signed, we got 2 more. So it was
Well,
like,
yeah, because motorized, we had one like after a couple of years, we kind of got our name, and I was like, all right, I'm sitting here, I have a college degree and a master's, and I can't even figure out what this language is. I'm sitting here, my buddy's actually an entertainment lawyer, and he had just finished, and he's like, oh, just redline this. I'm like, why do they put it in that language? Then you figure out, well, screw you, because most guys don't read it because they don't know what it means.
they're like, what? Record contract? X on the spot. But no, I learned a lot. Now, I still hate reading them.
Oh,
I really do. It like with the Niviane, man, I went through it, and then I summarized it and outlined it for the rest of the band. And even then, afterwards, they were like, well, what about this? I'm like, I told you. It means this. But they're hard. They're hard to read. And it's,
especially with the ever-changing business that it is today. Do you find more things today in there than you found maybe 10, 15 years ago that are totally different?
Yeah, now you have all sorts of, the electronic and the streams and all that type stuff for media. It's different than just saying, oh, X sales, physical sales, and then there's just so many things. Like I've been spending all day today updating my publishing for my back catalog because there's a lot of albums I never put up for publishing, and then I'm trying to work on my sound scan, which is how you collect your streaming royalties and stuff. And these are things that I'm talking about. There's probably musicians out there listening going, I don't know anything about that. Go figure it out because you need to. If you release a CD and you have it, say it's even through CD Baby, and it's out there on iTunes and Spotify, you get paid for streams, not just through that. You have CD Baby collecting that money for you, but there's also radio plays that you get money on. And then besides that, if anyone uses any of your stuff, you want your publishing rights. There's a lot that goes behind it. So the more you release, the more you do. I think that every musician out there, if they're going to be playing music, they should take a little bit of time to learn the business of it. If they want to, like you said, be more than just, I want to be in a band. Yeah,
because I know there's like ones now that like some record companies, because it's so dried up, they'll put in like, oh, we get a percentage of your merch sales.
Oh, yeah. Some venues do that.
Yeah,
some bands on tour will do that to the opening bands, and like you said, the labels. Luckily, the label we signed with, they were like, we take 0 of your merch. And I was like, oh, good, we don't have to talk.
Yeah, well, because when we played with Puddle of Mud last year, like they didn't do that at Ace of Spades, but I was in contact with the guys that were opening for them in up in Portland, and they were like, yeah, they said we have to give them like a portion of our merch sales. And then I asked the guys at Ace of Spades, and they're like, they tried to pull that on us, but like we can't justify that because like we would have no local band that's gonna go, oh, you got merch? Well, you need to send 15% to the big band.
Yep, it's stuff like that. It's crazy.
I'm like, that's ridiculous. I'm like, Puddle Mud's, you're not that big. I mean, obviously you are hurting for money because you're trying to scrape from us.
Right, exactly.
So as we wrap up here, where can we find all of your projects? Hellscream, Skinner, Niviane, where can we find everything? Where can we keep up to date on everything with them?
So the easiest place, the one-stop shop for everything. And I do say shop because I have an online store.
Cheap plug.
Total cheap plug. I mean, you can buy downloads from me, shirts, CDs. You see we're surrounded by merchandise and stuff. NormanSkinner.net. That's my own website. It has links to all my current bands. It has links to all my social media, the band's social media. It's got videos, pictures, and of course the store. Because the only other online site is Niviane, which is Niviane.com. But you can also find that through my site as well. And then we sell just Niviane stuff and Niviane news and stuff. Every other project does not have a website. Because obviously Skinner, it's my solo band, so I can use my website. But those would be the 2 places.
Two places. Yep. Okay, websites, and then everything's on iTunes, Spotify, everything up there.
If you don't want to order, if you're electronic like I am, then you can just listen on Spotify, Pandora, iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio. It's on all that stuff. You can buy it through Amazon CDW. The Niviane's doing really well. You can even buy it on like Target.com.
Oh wow, Target, man, they big time there.
Yeah, like, woohoo. So I mean, yeah, it's out there, and some of my older stuff will be harder. Like the first album, that Traumantine one, I see that on eBay for like $100.
Wow.
At least some of these Magica discs are online for like $60 and stuff. So it's because they're out of print. I've tried to get some from the old labels and have been unable to. So like I don't have any copies to sell and stuff.
So iTunes, normanskinner.net.
Yeah, normanskinner.net or Niviane.com.
Niviane.com, and then you guys are on tour, so definitely if
we'll be hitting the road April 1st. We leave Easter. We're playing with Sirenia and Threat Signal, and then there's a band from South America. I forget how to say their name. And then there's us, and we're playing our first date in Baltimore, Maryland. We'll be hitting the East Coast down to Florida, and then cutting across through Texas.
You're going to see all the great United States there.
Yeah, part of it. And I have not, on the tours I have done in the past, this is a lot of area over there in that southern East Coast I have never played before.
That's going to be fun.
It'll be nice to finally get out there.
That's going to be fun. So, all right, thank you for coming on, man.
Oh, hell yeah, man.
All right, I want to thank Norman again for coming on from Niviane. They're going on tour here in just a couple weeks, the East Coast, and they're going to be working their way back. If you live out on the East Coast, definitely go check them out. If you're in Sacramento, definitely go check them out. I know they're going to be playing Holy Diver here, not this weekend, but the following weekend. So if you're in the Sacramento area, go check them out. They're a badass heavy metal band that kicks some serious ass, so definitely go check them out. Once again, I want to, as I talked about at the top of the show, if Fozzy's coming near your town, check them out. Highly recommend going and getting the VIP package. And check it out. Check the podcast out here on social media. Nick's R&W podcast is the Twitter handle. Rock and Wrestling Podcast at gmail.com. Find it on Facebook, Nick's Rock and Wrestling Podcast, the YouTube channel. As in the coming weeks here, as we get closer to WrestleMania, the big event, I'm going to be posting some extra bonus footage of some episodes, maybe my favorite WrestleMania matches, my favorite WrestleMania moments. So we'll see some bonus content up on the YouTube channel. As I mentioned earlier, my t-shirts will be available for purchase on ProWrestlingTees.com here in the coming weeks. So look for that. Definitely help a brother out and go support the podcast. Keeps my cost of doing this podcast free, so I don't have to be one of those dicks out there and try to charge people for listening to podcasts, some idiot talk about wrestling and rock for an hour each week. So help a brother out and support the podcast and get buy a t-shirt, ProWrestlingTees.com. It'll be up there here in the next couple of weeks. Want to give you a schedule for the upcoming guests. I got some big guests coming up laid out here for the next coming weeks, especially since we're into WrestleMania season. Wanted to cover today's guest, Norman. Gave it a little change of pace since the last few episodes had been some wrestling guests. Wanted to do a little bit of some music talk. Next week's guest is going to be a big guest. It's going to be ROH's Ring of Honor. Flip Gordon is going to be on there. He's going to be in town this weekend in the Bay Area, so I'm going to go have a nice chat with him. He'll be the guest this coming week. The following week after that will be Adam Thornstone, if you're familiar with his work in the tag team Reno Scum. They've wrestled all over the world, including Impact Wrestling. Going to be sitting down with him this weekend as well, as he's in the area doing a show. The following week after that will be the week of WrestleMania. I will be doing a WrestleMania preview show. I will have a guest. I'll have somebody to play off of, and we'll talk about the whole WrestleMania card, some of our predictions. And the following week after that, I have a guest scheduled as well. Will be Patrick Donovan from the band Toy Called God, based out of the Bay Area. They're going to be doing a show up here in Sacramento in a few weeks, so I'm going to go have an interview with him, and he'll be the week after WrestleMania. So my following guests, next week, Flip Gordon from Ring of Honor, Adam Thornstone from Reno Scum tag team, WrestleMania preview show, and then Patrick Donovan from Toy Called God. But next week, I will see you right here. Not see you, but you'll hear me on Nick's Rock and Wrestling Podcast, as we'll have Flip Gordon from ROH. And don't forget to follow on all the social media, Twitter, Facebook, the YouTube channel. Go to ProWrestlingTees.com here in the coming